start with you. NFL Week 6 has come and gone. I can't believe we're about to start Week 7. And after Week 7 is halfway through the season, or halfway-ish now that they added the extra game. But goddamn, the season's moving too fast for me. But Week 6, Dwayne Marcus, we'll just go in order of the screen. Dwayne Marcus, most impressive this week.
I think we should all be impressed at the fact that Aaron Rodgers is throwing footballs without a boot. 6 weeks removed from popping his Achilles. I think that's quite impressive. And on that note, I think it's impressive that the Jets have found a way to win 3 football games without Aaron Rodgers and stay very much in the thick of things as it pertains to being a playoff team come the end of the season. Aaron Rodgers, he's a crazy guy, and as a Packers fan, I know that. But there's a lot of people that looked at him after he said he plans to play football again this year. They looked at him like he was crazy. But the Jets have at least done a good job of making sure that that's possible by winning games that they should win. Especially, I think, a big win against the Eagles, who were the best team in the NFC last year. Obviously, should have won the Super Bowl in most people's opinions. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, I would say, are most impressive for me from Week 6.
Go ahead, Hunter.
Yeah, my most impressive this week, I'm going to give it to the Jags. I know maybe an interesting one for some, but I think given that they were in London for 2 weeks, had to come back from that. It's not always easy, as we saw with the Bills, which I'm sure we'll get to, Jerm.
Don't do that.
So, coming off 2 weeks in London, important divisional game against the Colts. They took game 1 against the Colts in week 1, and their defense looked pretty outstanding in this game. I know they were playing Gardner Minshew, who's been, I would say, inconsistent. Some games he looks, like he could be a very good starter, and other games he looks like, all right, this guy should be a backup. So I think he's been inconsistent, but the defense really took advantage of his inconsistency. They looked good. Offense started hot. They fizzled a little bit, but put up 37 points against anyone in this league is pretty impressive. So definitely have to give it to the Jags.
And I'll jump in and give it to Philadelphia's own PJ Walker for walking in, leading the charge as a backup quarterback and taking down the undefeated 49ers. So I know both the Eagles and 49ers fallen off that undefeated pedestal this week, but I did think it was a little special to see it with PJ Walker, with the Browns, and get the job done. I know the 49ers helped them out with the missed field goals and some lack of execution down the stretch, but I do love seeing PJ Walker showing up. Awesome dude, guy who's done it on all over the place, all levels. So happy to see him get a little shine. And to me, that took the story of Week 6.
XFL legend, PJ Walker.
MVP,
PJ Walker. Took over for massage rapist Deshaun Watson crybaby ass, who's not hurt but decides to sit out games. So shout out to PJ Walker. On the Jets, Dwayne Marcus, very impressive. I had them written down as well. Zach Wilson, who clearly did not want to play this season, was expecting Aaron Rodgers to just let him kick his feet up and sit him around for about 2 or 3 years before he had to actually play football again. And it's been the Jets' defense. They did this to Patrick Mahomes, right? Josh Allen, my beloved Josh Allen, the Philadelphia Eagles, NFC champions or Super Bowl contenders. And, but we already knew that about the Jets, so I guess I shouldn't be that surprised. But at least the difference for me for the Jets is Zach Wilson isn't losing them the game per se, like he would last year, right? Like he at least, I don't know if it's just the talent around him. Garrett Wilson's good, but I don't see Zach Wilson seeing ghost as another Jets quarterback used to do. Like Zach Wilson has had some games where I was like, oh shit. That's pretty damn good. Like, I'm not saying he's a world beater or anything, but maybe with another year or so with some seasoning, I couldn't see why not, and I think that for him in his head, that was the plan. Hey, I'm not ready for this, especially in New York. Maybe if I was in Tennessee or some other lowly marketed place that I could grow naturally, but in New York, I need Aaron Rodgers for at least 2 years. And then you can step in, at his young age and then be a little bit more comfortable. So I know after the first few games, everybody was making fun of the fact that Mike White, the guy that the Jets probably should have kept, is down in Miami. But then as we saw, last week, Mike White kind of came crashing back down to earth. But I think for Zach Wilson, when Mike White came in for Zach Wilson, the team immediately had Mike effing White shirts, and Like it's just, there's a lot mentally to deal with if you're him. So the fact that he's able to kind of keep it together, go out there and be as professional as possible, to me is pretty impressive. So I did have them down, and I did write Cleveland, but I'm going to give some love to the Giants. Yes, they beat my beloved Buffalo Bills, but Buffalo legend Tyrod Taylor, right? Dwayne Marcus ended the drought. My guy,
T-Mobile.
I love Tyrod Taylor. I was not against keeping him. The team was never built for him here, but that was never the plan once we got a new coach and new ownership. So I kind of understood it, but he's just another one of those guys that I felt like never got a real chance, and it's probably too late for him to get that real chance. Brian Dable scoffing at the fact that there's a QB controversy, which is ridiculous. The Giants should have beaten the Buffalo Bills, and I know I shouldn't say that as a Bills fan, but I'm not a big fan of Sean McDermott, the bald clapper, jackass. I hate him so much. All right, Dwayne Marcus, back to you. Biggest disappointment.
Well, for the people that watch Go Talk to Marcus, they know every chance I get, I'm gonna crap on the Denver Broncos. So the Denver Broncos, for the fifth time this season, are the biggest disappointment to me. When you spend $245 million in Walmart money to pay Russell Wilson, when you spend $85 million in Walmart money to pay Sean Payton, and you're 1-5 through 6 weeks of the season, you've won 5 games altogether between this season and last, and Drew Lock won 7 games for you 3 years ago. That's a problem. It's super disappointing. I don't care that they lost to the Chiefs. I don't care that they were on the road against the Chiefs. I don't care that they haven't beaten the Chiefs since Peyton Manning was quarterback. I don't care about any of that, because we're talking about $350 million in Walmart money being invested in a circus, a clown show, an NFL football team that probably couldn't beat the University of Colorado tomorrow, and they just blew a 49-point lead to the University of Stanford the other night. Like they suck. Like they're downright awful. And I'll say what I said last week on my show. Quarterback sucks, running back sucks, wide receiver sucks, O-line sucks, D-line sucks, D-back sucks, safety sucks, the corner sucks, the offensive coordinator sucks, defense coordinator sucks, Sean Payton sucks, GM sucks, front office sucks. Denver, they suck. And I enjoy that. So for the 5th time this season, the Denver Broncos, and really for the 6th time, because they shouldn't be 1-5. They should be 0-6. The only reason why they won the football game was because the Chicago Bears also suck. But yeah, the Denver Broncos are the biggest disappointment to me, and I love it because I do. They suck every week. So keep sucking. Pause.
My man. Hunter, go ahead.
Well, you see, they were in my honorable mentions because as a Broncos fan, it is hard. It is really hard to watch this team. And, I didn't put them in my disappointment because they're like, I've just moved on. Like, I've accepted at this point, the 6 stages of grief or whatever it is. Yeah, I'm at the acceptance stage. I know we suck. There is no disappointment. My feelings, it's just accepted. We're bad and it's not going to get better. And it's been that way for about 7 years. So, I mean, my biggest disappointment, and I mean, they've been disappointing to me all year also, especially considering what they did last year, are the Eagles. You look at Jalen Hurts, another bad game from him, 3 picks, a pick in a crucial moment, especially when we've expected him to, rise to the occasion. We're expecting him to, a lot of people had him as MVP for this year, a guy that could potentially win the MVP, and he wasn't able to do it. Well, he's not going to do it if he keeps playing like this, is what I mean. I don't know. I think just when it came down to crunch time, this team did not perform to what we're used to seeing them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you took mine from me right there. Is I was going to lead with the Eagles as well, and specifically go Jalen Hurts. That he's now thrown 7 interceptions on the year. This is the same guy that threw 6 interceptions in the entire season last year. So to be at this point in the season and be doing that is not a good sign. And more than just the results, it's the process. He's making decisions that he has not making. He's forcing in double coverage. He's making poor reads. And so much of this Eagles offense around him, we're seeing pieces fall apart a little bit too, both on offense and defense. Lane Johnson getting hurt is a big deal to this team. I still think the Eagles are going to be fine in the long haul, but I do think that this is not a week where it's going to fare well with them against the Miami Dolphins. I do think that they're having a little bit of a slap of reality of things went just about perfect for them last year, and that's not going to be the case year in and year out. But for the sake of being different for this one, I'm going to hand this one to the Los Angeles Chargers, who are another team that I enjoy, honestly, taking a little bit of pleasure in their downfall. I'm not a Justin Herbert guy. I think there is very few people on the planet who are better at losing football games than Justin Herbert. He's a guy that just tends to find a way. I respect the talent. I understand he has the raw skills, but just a guy that I feel like doesn't have the feel for the moment, and it showed face against the Dallas Cowboys, who in many ways are the Chargers of the NFC.
Can I
Yeah.
just say,
Go ahead.
realistically, in all seriousness, on a very unbiased note, the biggest disappointment in the NFL from week 1 to week 6 has to be the Carolina Panthers, though. And I hope that wasn't yours, Jerm. But like, you drafted Bryce Young because you hired Frank Reich because you trusted that he was going to bring in the right quarterback for this next era in Carolina Panther football, and they're 0-6. And Bryce Young hasn't even had. He's yet to have a game through 6 weeks where he's looked like the number 1 pick in the draft. Like, he's looked bad 6 out of 6 times this week, and this season, and there's nothing to pull from of positivity. Like, there's no light into the tunnel. There's no silver linings. There's no, yeah, they're losing, but Bryce Young's playing really well. There's no, yeah, they're losing, but it's not Bryce Young's fault. Like, Bryce Young has done nothing yet in this through 6 games of the season to even justify being picked number 1 overall, despite all these things people are saying about how he's the best quarterback in the draft, while I've got CJ Stroud down here in Houston with
Looks awesome.
next to nothing, and he looks awesome. He looks awesome down there in Houston. So Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers are actually, on a completely unbiased note, the biggest disappointment of the league. So
shout out to Andrew E. Thanks for joining us. I'm assuming that's one of you two gentlemen's brought him. That's a new name I've never seen. So thank you. Shout out to you. Appreciate you for stopping in. Steve Waldman, friend of the network. Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Jalen Hurts will smoke Miami this week to make up for last week. I don't know. Jalen Hurts hasn't been smoking anybody. I don't know if that's the right word. I mean, he's been outplayed. We talked about it before, Dwayne Marcus. Kirk Cousins, just teams that they've beaten haven't really become Jalen Hurts. And I actually took a lot of flack on social media because I said, if you wanted to point out the weakest part of the Eagles right now, it's Jalen Hurts. And for some reason, people were jumping down my throat, but the stats don't lie. Now, I should say the season's not really early, but we haven't played half the season, and obviously things can happen in the second half, and we'll find out if he picks it up. You can't, they were in the Super Bowl, so I'm not going to sit there and that was largely because of Jalen Hurts. But this season a little bit different story, and I don't know what the deal is. What the deal is with that? The Panthers. Go ahead.
Jalen Hurts this season is the reason why I was very hesitant to say, like, there's so many people after the last season saying, oh, Jalen Hurts is the second best quarterback in football. Like, and then you have what we have this week where this season where he's 6 games into the season and he's yet to give me a game where he looked like the second place MVP or the MVP runner-up from last season. And the problem is, like, the schedule doesn't get easier for them. They have a game against Miami Sunday night. They have Washington, who for all intents and purposes, the Washington Commanders almost beat them a couple weeks ago if it weren't for their own incompetency, right? They have Dallas with Dak Prescott. They're going to be healthy. I personally don't think that this version of the Eagles is going to be able to beat the Dallas Cowboys fully healthy. They have a bye, and after the bye, they have to play the Chiefs. They got the Bills. They've got the Niners. They've got the Cowboys. Like, their schedule doesn't get any easier. In fact, they don't get easy games again until week 16 when they have the Giants, and then it's the Cardinals, and then it's the Giants again. Like, we could be having a very different conversation about the Philadelphia Eagles by the time we get to week 16. The problem is that everyone in the NFL has been so hungry for that new shiny toy to, like, take down Pat Mahomes, right? And a lot of us, and I'll admit I've been falling into this, a lot of us thought it was Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow, of all the guys that we've crowned, some of us have crowned Josh Allen, some people have crowned Jalen Hurts, some people have thought it was Justin Herbert. There's people like Nick Wright on TV saying it's Caleb Williams. He hasn't even stepped foot in the NFL yet, and they're talking about Caleb Williams. But, like, a lot of people after last season thought it was going to be Jalen Hurts, and so far through 6 weeks of the season, Jalen Hurts has not looked like just the next person that's supposed to be the heir apparent to Pat Mahomes. And they're in the NFC, so, like, they're going to make the playoffs. But this Eagles team is not the Eagles team that we saw last season that was unfortunate and just unlucky to lose a game that Jalen Hurts outperformed Pat Mahomes. And there's not many times in Pat Mahomes' career when he's been flat out outperformed, but that was one of them, and they haven't bounced back from it. Like, the record is very deceiving. Like, they could very easily be 3-2, 2-3 at this point in the season because they just haven't given enough through 6 games.
Yeah, I agree with just about everything you said there, but at the same time, they're 5-1 right now. They're sitting in first place of the NFC East, and they gave themselves a little cushion for this tough schedule. And even being 5-1, we haven't seen this team play nearly as well as they have last year. That some of this is absolutely on Jalen, that it hasn't been the decision making, the process hasn't been there enough, but that just the offense as a whole has not quite clicked yet. And that's been the biggest problem with this team, that until it reaches that point, that I kind of like that they're going through this battle-tested stretch, that I want to see how they look against these teams, because it's not going to get easier when they get to the playoffs either. So let's figure this out. Let's get better week in and week out. And as much as they're starting from a low point and the vibes feel down, they're still 5-1. So it's a good place to kind of still not being playing your best football. And I am optimistic that there's at least a turnaround as the season progresses.
So you had mentioned Caleb Williams, and this is where I rail against young people like you, Dwayne Marcus. This jackass talking about he wants part ownership in the team he drafted him.
It's insane.
Who do you think you are? You're not Tim Tebow. You're not Tim Tebow, dog. You're not Vince Young, for those who remember Vince Young in college. You're barely Johnny Manziel. I mean, like, relax. Hey, relax. You're not even the best quarterback in USC modern history. So let's calm down with the part ownership talk. See, this is, you know whose fault this is, Dwayne Marcus? You know whose fault this is.
I know whose fault it is.
That's right.
Yep.
Liberal media, you bastards. Tell that kid to sit down. NIL, just enjoy the NIL money. He needs to worry about the cold weather in Chicago. He needs to worry about not getting drafted to that terrible franchise, because they should trade Justin Fields and move on from him too. And that's what Chicago should do. They should use their first and second pick on Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley. Somehow draft the coach. That's what you can do. Because you knew from the moment they hired a guy named Matt Eberflus that the Bears were not going to be any good. Has anybody named Eberflus ever been good at anything? Put it on the poll. I need to know. So Andrew Reese says Caleb's not like that. Thank you. Didn't they just get their ass kicked by Notre Dame?
Yep.
Caleb looked absolutely god awful in that game against Notre Dame the other day. Yes.
All right. So just shut up, Caleb. Just go to class. I don't know. Mike Powers, Sean Barnard. Yeah, he's defending his beloved Eagles. I don't blame him, man. Like, they are 5-1. Both things can be true. Also, you brought up the Chargers. I don't have it down there, but on the poll, does Justin Herbert look like college? 63% of the audience says yes. All right, so
Jerm,
what
does college look like?
Justin Herbert. Just look at him. Looks like Justin Herbert. Matter of fact, there's another one in college right now. The Notre Dame quarterback,
Sam
Hartman.
Yeah. They showed him in his flowing locks there. Somebody check his birth certificate. He looks
And
40.
His rib necklace, that he's got a necklace of a physical rib from him that had to be taken out, that he wears around his neck all the time. That's Sam Hartman.
Oh my God! See, no, that's ridiculous.
Catholic boy right there.
I hope he's good. That's all I can tell. You know, every year it's so funny. We go through the draft, whether it's NBA or NFL, and we go through these drafts and we talk ourselves into these guys. And the reality is, like, 75% of them are going to suck. Like, you know what I mean? There's only that few. So hopefully Sam Hartman is one of those guys. You know, Brock Purdy's living proof of that, right? You know, you get a guy drafted last, and Steve Waldman had asked, I guess right now, is Brock Purdy MVP? And I don't want to be recency bias over his last outing, because I think that was the worst game we've seen him play. But as Dwayne Marcus knows, for me on this show, me and Bert, you have to give us a 3-year sample size before I call you anything. And the reality is, this may be Brock Purdy's second year, but he hasn't played a full season of football yet. So it's hard to judge who he's going to be. Now, if Debo and C-Mac miss a significant amount of time, then we're going to see how good Brock Purdy really is, because you can say anything you want about his record. Jimmy Garoppolo has the 3rd highest winning percentage of all time. You don't see a lot of people lining up defending him, calling him great. So I'm not going to do the same to Brock Purdy just because they're winning a couple more games. Jimmy Garoppolo was in the Super Bowl. So, you know what I mean? So it's like, I need to see more from him, with him actually being the reason, and not Christian McCaffrey catching a 3-yard screen pass and then running it for 40 yards and boosting those stats for the boy. My biggest disappointment is the Atlanta Falcons. Even though they are 3-3 in a winnable division, my issue is they continue to trot out Desmond Ridder, who is clearly not any good. And you have a baller, bona fide baller, and shout out to JT and the Down on the Give Us a Shot Network, because he hates when I defend Taylor Heineke. But I'm going to defend Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke may not be a world beater, but Dwayne Marcus heard this analogy as well before. Trent Dilfer and Aaron Rodgers have the same amount of Super Bowls. There's more than one way to win. And I'm not saying that Taylor Heineke is the piece to get you to win the Super Bowl, but we have seen him win games on his own and will teams. Players like that, people love to see that. There are people in Washington still talking about Taylor Heineke. So how much do you need to see from Desmond Ridder when he throws you 3 picks and legit costs you the game? And then another reason why they're the biggest disappointment is you drafted possibly the best running back we've seen come through the pike in a very long time in Bijan Robinson, and you have him splitting carries with Tyson Alopecia. What's his name? I don't know. I mean, what the hell is going on over there in Atlanta? And then you have Arthur Smith, who is like staring at the field with his fingers on his chin for like 20 seconds before he makes a decision. What the hell is going on down there? So I'm very disappointed in Atlanta. Panthers, I can't say that they're disappointment because I called this before this happened. I said the Panthers should have drafted CJ Stroud. He was clearly the best quarterback of the bunch. The moment Mina Kimes took that picture for Bryce Young should have put the nail in the coffin when that guy wasn't even taller than Mina Kimes wearing 6-inch heels. He looks like a Make-A-Wish kid out there. He looks like junior varsity. Put that on the poll. Does Bryce Young look like junior varsity? Because he damn sure looks it to me. And you can't tell me they don't have any weapons. Adam Thielen is like top 5 in receptions and top 5 in yards. Clearly can still play. They wrote him off. Miles Sanders was just on a Super Bowl caliber team. You're just not using them right. Like you have talent all over the place. J.C. Horn, you have it all over the place, man. Don't tell me that there's no talent there. And the reason why is because the Texans were worse than the Panthers last year. And now they're 10 times better than they are this year with largely the same team. And that's mostly, then you know what? Fuck it. Entirely because of CJ Stroud. So you see, I almost fucked up and called him Caleb Williams because that guy pissed me off so much. Part ownership in the league. What an idiot. I don't know if anybody has anything to add to that, but that's why they're my biggest disappointment.
I think going back to the Falcons real quick, you're disappointed in Desmond Ridder. He threw the ball 47 times in this game. Who's giving him that many attempts? When has he proven that he can do anything with the ball that is of any good, of any positivity? Because I've yet to see it. I mean, and like you said, Taylor Heineke can at least not turn the ball over.
Yeah.
He can
or at least create plays, right? Because that's basically what grew his legend with the Washington racial slurs, right? Like that was what had him he had the smartest play I've ever seen a quarterback do. And I'm sorry, Sean, it was against your Eagles.
I remember
Fletcher Cox was coming at him and people's like, oh no, he just fell. Taylor, go rewatch that play. I believe I think it's one of our highest rated TikToks. Taylor Heineke saw Fletcher coming, didn't go down fetal position like normal quarterbacks would. He squared up and took one knee because he wanted the contact. He did that on purpose because he celebrated
so hard. He celebrated so hard after
because that was his plan. He didn't celebrate because, oh shit, like I accidentally drew. No, he drew a foul in football. One of the smartest things I've ever seen. And I know a lot of Eagles fans don't want to give him credit for that, but he's just a gamer. So when you have a team like Atlanta that's floundering, that doesn't really know what's happening at the quarterback position, and I get they drafted him. You want to give the guy you drafted as much possibility and as much chances as you can, but it ain't working, man. And you have a guy who you've seen it work, make chicken salad out of chicken shit all throughout his career in Washington. Nobody's saying he is the answer, but he could get you through a winnable division. Matter of fact, if it wasn't for dumbass Ron Rivera, and I know we can't talk about him because he had cancer, but if it wasn't for Ron Rivera not knowing how to count, Washington probably would have been in the playoffs. He forgot that there was a 17th game, and he pulled Taylor Heineke a game too early that they could have won, and that's why they missed the playoffs, missed that last wild card spot. So I you know, and that part of me can hold on. I gotta play the conspiracy. I think Ron Rivera and Dan Snyder did that on purpose because they didn't want to make the playoffs because they wanted Dan Snyder out. And it's hard to kick out an owner who has brought a team to the playoffs. So I think that was a calculated thing, much like everything else. It's crazy that all of a sudden Washington has got the green light to build an entirely new stadium and got the green light to do all these fun things. And now that Dan Snyder's gone. So that's pretty amazing.